Hey, welcome back everyone to Pave the Way podcast. I'm your host, Greg Helbeck, and today I am super excited for our guest to hop on, Mr. Scott Carson out of Austin, Texas. If you guys are not familiar with Scott and We Close Notes, my goodness, this is a very fascinating subject for people who are in the residential real estate business. And I've been following Scott for a while. I asked him to be a guest on the show, and I was super excited for this interview. So Scott, thanks so much for joining us today.
Man, I am honored to be here. You're doing a great job with your podcast. I'm just listening to our buddy Brad Chandler that you had on episode 5 recently. I know Brad for a few years now. Great guy. And I'm honored to be here and always glad to drop some note nuggets or note knowledge with your audience.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for hopping on, and let's just get right into it. I appreciate you listening to some previous episodes. So I'll just kind of tell you about the audience real quick so you kind of understand where we can take this. So a lot of my audience are either beginning real estate investors who are just regular seasoned real estate investors who are buying and selling a lot of residential real estate, some commercial, but really at the end of the day, they're not very familiar with notes. So I'm really excited to really kind of dive into this niche today because it's something that is very fascinating to me. And I think a lot of people might not know too much about it. And I think today we're going to really answer a lot of questions. So would you mind sharing a little bit about your background, your story, how you just got into this real estate investing business to begin with, and then we'll pivot into the notes?
Yeah, so I started out back in 2001, straight out of college. We bought our first primary residence. Then we bought 2 investment properties because you could fog a mirror back then. Not that I had bad credit then, but we bought 2 investment properties. We're going to be the next, landlords. I grew up in South Texas, small town. Dad owned the local hardware store, so I know how to fix just about anything growing up and built a lot of houses from the ground floor up as well during the summers and things like that. So when I got into real estate investing, I thought, be a landlord. We love that fiction TV show, Flip This House. Wife wanted to pick up paint and carpet and be all fancy about that. And we lost our asses. The market turned south. I got laid off from my 6-figure job. And so we were making 6 mortgage payments on a private school teacher salary, which is not fun at all. Okay. Oh. And so I became a deadbeat borrower. Luckily for us, we were able to get rid of the 2 investment properties. We kept our primary home with some trial payment plan and a mod. And I was like, oh man, I don't know if I want to do that again. And fast forward a couple years, I was working in banking and finances again. And I had a good buddy of mine who came to me and said, hey, Scott, I'm starting a mortgage company that's traveling the country to all these like Ron LeGrand and expos and really need some help. And I was introduced to his 2 sponsoring brokers for the mortgage company. And I was like, this is what I want to do. This is definitely what I want to do. They were flipping houses. They were speaking on creative financing. So that's what I did. So I quit my job at JP Morgan Chase as a banker and flew out to LA, was at the LA Marriott for a Ron LeGrand seminar with 1,500 people talking about mortgages and doing some different products for this. So for the next 4 years, I was very fortunate enough, had basically like a 4-year apprenticeship with 2 of the most creative minds in real estate that I ever met. And learned owner financing, wrap around, learned about options and subject to deals and fix and flips and things like that from some of the best in the industry, to the point that I stopped. I left the mortgage company when I started seeing the writing on the wall in 2008 and just was a full-time investor for the most part, doing stuff for my own portfolio here in town. And then also, I started traveling out and coaching on their behalf to work with their investors. But when the music stopped in the mortgage industry in late 2008, it stopped like that. Yeah. And, I was doing a variety of things, like I said, in subject twos and some rentals and doing some other stuff. And I had my mentor, and then I also had a private money investor who would let me on quite a few projects and say, hey, this is a time. This is like the RTC. This is where we made our wealth in buying the distressed debt. And so 2010, I stopped playing around with really everything else and just focused solely on buying non-performing first mortgages on residential and commercial properties. I stopped sending out postcards and yellow letters and door knocking and just started dialing for dollars, calling asset managers at banks that I had, originated loans with. And now I'm starting to buy that debt back. And for the last, 10 plus years now, that's really all I've focused on is distressed notes. My goal is not to take a note down to take the property back. My goal, I don't like fix and flips these days. My goal is to rehab the borrowers. I know it's a little bit different image, but when I look at buying distressed debt, we usually target occupied assets with a whole goal to try to work out some sort of payment plan with a homeowner and try to keep them in the property if we can. Now, that doesn't always work 100% of the time. We still take some property back. So I got a couple rehabs going on right now. But the note space, I believe, has really three great advantages to it. One, you've got a lot of deals that most people don't see. I mean, I see stuff 6 to 12 months before your traditional fix and flippers will ever see it. Most of the stuff that we see never ends up on the MLS or ends up at the foreclosure auction. So we do good stuff. Secondly, we've got a variety of exit strategies. I know you want to talk about that later on. And the third thing, we're all looking for deals, right, Greg?
Everyone
for deals. I'm getting deals a lot cheaper than most fix and flippers or REO refugees or lazy landlords are getting, because we are buying the debt and becoming the bank.
Yeah, and that's the key. So really appreciate you going into detail on your background there. So really you started out like a lot of regular people. You know, you had a job, you wanted to quit your job, you got the entrepreneur bug, you know, you had some mentors and some training, and then you're kind of in this residential business, buying and selling, buying and renting, fix and flipping, stuff that I do every day. And then you kind of just stumbled upon this note business and something, you know, kind of just piqued your interest, you know, timing wise, it was kind of there. So for people who are not too familiar with notes, because I'm sure there's some people who are listening right now who are like, oh, I know exactly what this is. I'm really excited to learn about the advanced stuff. But then some people are probably listening now saying, what the heck is a note? You know, so let's just kind of go back a little bit and just what exactly is a note? And then we'll kind of take that and we'll just ramp forward and we'll get into details on how to be successful doing this.
Great question, Greg. And as I like to say, everybody is in the note business already, whether they know it or not. Just whether you've got a mortgage, a car payment, student loans, credit card bills, you're in the note business. You're just on the wrong side of the payment stream. Okay.
Yeah.
And so what a note is, what we do, it's a mortgage. We're basically buying mortgages. And when we buy the mortgage, we become the bank. Now there's a borrower in place. Let's say, Greg, you've got a house with a mortgage on it and you've run through a little bit of a stumbling block, a financial hurdle along the way. You're upside down or you're behind on your payments. The more that you're behind on your debt, oftentimes I can come in, and this is exactly what we do. We buy the mortgages directly from the banks and the hedge funds. We either buy one-off deals or we'll buy in bulk in different parts of the country. But we become the bank, and now the borrower, instead of you maybe having it with National City Bank in California, okay? We bought that note at a big discount. You still owe National City, say $250, okay? You're still 6 months behind or whatever. Well, we bought that note from National City, say maybe at 50 cents of what's owed.
Oh, wow.
Or 50% of value, because I don't usually go above 55% of value. So it just depends on how upside down you are or whatever. So we bought that note at 125. You still owe 250, but your bank is no longer National City. You get a letter in the mail saying, oh, hey, your note's been transferred. Thank you for not paying National City. Now you can try and not pay We Close Notes Bank or Scott Carson Bank or any of our different entities. Okay. And then how we make our money is in the workout, is in rehabbing the borrower. Then we send out letters, then we send out phone calls, then we send out door knockers that are trying to make right party contact with the borrower and say, hey, what happened? We know you had a country western song in there. You know, did you fall out of work? Did you get laid off? You decide to buy an investment property and lose your shirt on it? You know, we've heard everything.
Oh, I bet. Yeah.
You know, and I know that you're 6 to 12 months behind. Can you start paying on time? Can you start paying what you owed monthly? If you can do that, great, we'll work with you. If you can't do that, well, let's figure out something. Because the fact that I bought the debt at a substantial discount gives me a lot of flexibility to work with you, Greg, to keep you in the house. Because that's where I make most of my money is keeping you in the house, actually. If you move out of the house now, or you're going to fight me and not reperform, I'm going to have to pay your attorney fees to foreclose on you. It's going to drag it out, depending on what state it's in. Then I'm going to have to rehab the property for the most part, try to get it up to where I need to be. And then I got to list it on the MLS and sell it. I don't want to do that if it takes me 6, 9, or 12 months, depending on the state it's in. I'd rather keep you in the house in 30 days, start having you make payments to me monthly, because you're making a normal payment based on what you owed for the most part. So if your interest rate was,
No, that makes total sense. Keep going. Yeah, this is awesome. Okay.
So if you had a 6% interest rate on your mortgage and I bought it at 50 cents a dollar and you start paying me monthly on time again, now I have a 12% return on investment to me like that.
Wow.
Okay. Now, after 12 months of on-time payments, I can now sell that loan as a reperforming loan back to Wall Street, back to IRA investors at somewhere between 80 and 90% of either the unpaid balance or the value of the house, depending on what's left. So let's just put some numbers to it. You owe $250. Let's just say you're behind 6 months. The house is worth $250 roughly, plus some, no biggie. Paid $125 for it. You're making 12 months of payments to me. And a normal mortgage payment on a $250,000 mortgage might be around $1,800, $2,000. Okay. So $2,000 times 12 is 24 grand. Now I could sell that note with a reperformance, say at 80 cents on the dollar. So 80% of 250 is 180. Okay. Is that right? Is my math right on that? No, it's better than that. It would be 200 of 250. Sorry. So I sell it at 80 cents a dollar of 250. I sell it for 200 to Wall Street. Well, I paid what? 125. Yeah. I sell it at 200 in 12 months. I just made 75 grand plus the payment stream. And now I have a reperforming note that people like, sell it off. I can now take that money back, go out now, and instead of buying one asset, I can double down and buy two and do the same thing all over again.
Wow. You guys just got the crash course on note investing in the last 6 minutes.
So that's the basic necessity. I wish it was all that simple, but
that's powerful. Yeah.
That's what we look for. That's why I don't want to buy vacant houses, because usually if it's vacant, somebody's trashed out the house.
I do.
The air conditioner has gone on a walkabout, and then the copper goblins have showed up.
Oh, I deal with them quite often. We have like 5 we're buying right now. I usually actually target vacant houses just because it's easier to negotiate those. But in your situation, yeah, my goodness, you want them in the house. So the thing is, I think a lot of the new investors are probably like, oh, that's interesting. So the thing that Scott was saying, and this, I'm sure some more advanced listeners are probably getting it, Scott's creating a lot of value because he's buying the note at a discount regardless. And then the note is also secured by a property or secured by the property. So if Scott goes and buys this note at a discount and now the borrower doesn't want to pay, Scott can foreclose and go after the collateral, and then he can sell that collateral to get his capital back. Am I correct there, Scott?
Yeah, we'll foreclose on the house. Definitely.
You're the lender.
Yeah, exactly. I'm the bank. And the bank always wins.
The bank always, I was like, what do they say? Like in a gold rush, you might as well sell the shovels, right? Like sometimes I borrow hard money and I'm like, these guys are making more money than me. It's like, why don't I start a hard money company? They're in the note business. Aren't hard money lenders in the note business?
That's it. I mean, they're creating loans. If you're lending money out, you're in the note space. It's just a different aspect of the note business. So yeah.
Interesting. So now my question was, why'd you move to the dark side of real estate investing? But you just went right into that. I mean, there's so many different exit strategies and ways to really help people and then make great profits. So Scott, let's kind of spend some time now talking about a few different ways that you can successfully exit these deals. We touched on it a little bit here, but let's go a little bit more into detail, because you can hold notes for cash flow, you can flip them, you can go through the property. So I just want you to kind of touch on some other ways that you can successfully exit these note deals, because there's a lot of moving parts in the note business. I think that's what kind of holds some maybe new note investors back, is they get confused. So they're like,
sure. There are different exit strategies. And this is, if you're an engineer and you need a specific exit strategy, this is not the business for you, because you'll be like, oh my God, there's different variables, right? Everything doesn't fit into a spreadsheet for the most part. So like I said before, if we buy a note, our first strategy is to try to get them start paying on time, reinstatement. Okay. If that doesn't work, then we'll do some sort of trial payment plan or a loan modification. Okay. If they can't come up with that, we'll ask them, do they have somebody that can assume the loan, do a loan assumption? Because as the bank, I can allow them to have a family member, a friend, neighbor, whatever, come in and assume the loan. I have that power to do that. If they won't do that, we'll try to do, well, could you do a payoff? Can you cash out your 401k, or can you go get money from your friends and family? Can you pay us off? That happens on smaller balance houses sometimes. If they can't do that, then we'll offer to list a house as a short sale. And I'm the fastest short sale negotiation company in America, because if somebody comes to me with a short sale offer on a house, I just got to look at what the net is and what I paid. And if that number makes sense, let's get it closed. Okay. If we don't get a short sale, then we'll offer up deed in lieu or cash for keys, where we'll actually pay the borrower, offer the borrower to either just sign the property over and walk away. Be like, listen, we'll let you walk, just sign it over and walk away. And some people will just walk away. I had a deal in Birmingham, Alabama today. We were willing to pay the borrowers $2,000. They'd already moved out of the house.
Oh, wow.
They left it swept condition. I'm like, great, let's get the locks changed and go from there. That's not always the case. We also have people that will just trash the house and leave occasionally. That doesn't happen all the time, but that's why God made insurance. Okay. So, deed in lieu, they walk away. Deed in lieu of foreclosure, basically. So now we have an REO. We can do whatever we want to. If we've got to, we'll do cash for keys, which will give them some money to walk away. And I've done cash for keys anywhere from $500 to $10,000. All right. If they don't do that, and it's a longer foreclosure state, we may go ahead and just resell the note to somebody else. Let them, a local investor, take over the nightmare of it. We bought it cheap at 40, 50 cents, sell it to a local investor who likes the deal at 60, 65 cents, and let them deal with the foreclosure.
Like wholesale.
Okay? We can also wholesale notes as well. I wholesale deals before we ever close on them. So we may make offers on 20 assets, and I like 10, and we'll wholesale the other 10 to somebody else, but we get a bulk offering. So that's actually usually the first strategy that I don't spend a lot of time on because we leave a lot of money on the table there. But with reselling the note, we've actually bought it, put some value into it by having a servicing company. We know if the borrower is going to tell us to go pound sand or is going to work with us, and then go from there. And then our second to last strategy is to foreclose.
Yeah.
And that varies by state. I mean, here in Texas, we do everything fast foreclosures, 21 days, fast highways, and then of course, fast executions. You know what I mean? Okay. New York could take you 3 years to foreclose.
That's right. Yeah. Oh my goodness. It's crazy. And New Jersey, right?
New Jersey is long, about 2 years. California is not bad. If it's a non-owner occupied, you can do it pretty fast. If it's a owner occ, you got a judicial foreclosure, which can take 12 months. But and then if we foreclose, great. And then one of the other things too, like I mentioned earlier, if we get them reperforming, start making payments on time, then we can resell the note as a reperforming as a strategy. So those are roughly our kind of 10 different exit strategies that we go with. Predominantly, it's some sort of repayment plan, cash for keys, deed balloons, or foreclosure is where kind of most of those fit into the aspect of things.
Yeah. Wow. So many options, right? It's like holy cow. So
it's kind of, I don't want to say it, but it's kind of a choose your own adventure kind of a deal.
Yeah.
One of the biggest mistakes I made early on in the note business was I kept coming from the fix and flip side. Is I kept trying to foreclose on everything. And I had borrowers that were like, I'd like to stay. I'd like to modify. I was like, oh, no, you're a deadbeat borrower. You haven't paid in 2 years. No. And I look back, I was like, man, I left a lot of money on the table when I could have had them reperforming without having to do all the work in 6 to 12 months without getting any income, because now I'm putting up foreclosure costs and attorney fees and then rehab costs. So.
Yeah, because you were looking at it still from like a fix and flip perspective, like, oh, the collateral. Now you're thinking, hey, I'm the bank. How do I get the paper fixed? And then how do I either cash flow the paper or flip the paper? But I think that's something that a lot of people listening now are like, wow, that's a different way to look at it. Because a lot of, like, even like me, if I was going to look at a note deal, like the first thing I'd look at is the collateral, because I'm thinking, okay, I got to fix and flip this thing. I got to rent this thing. So,
well, that's very important, Greg. I mean, we always I'm buying in multiple states. So we have realtors and other investors that are always putting their eyes on the asset. You don't want to buy a note on a shanty that's got a lien on it. You know what I mean? Or it's a flooded house in Missouri these days, or it got wiped out and it's just a slab.
Yeah.
The actual value of the property is what really secures your loan. I mean, that's why if the house is only worth 50 and the guy owes 100, I'm going to make my bid at 50% of the value, not the unpaid balance. So that's a couple of things to keep in mind out there. Is we do look at the value of the properties, but the thing is, it's not always to take the property back. It's, we bought a lot of assets last year where the borrowers had made payments in the last 6 months, hit and miss payments. Well, that tells me somebody kind of really wants to stay in the house.
Yeah.
And the servicer that was on that bank, it was just really kind of a crappy servicer. So I knew that, if we reached out to these homeowners and our realtors drove by and took photos, and we saw like flags in the front yard, kids' toys, or the lawn was mowed, somebody's got some pride of ownership, I'm willing to work with that borrower to keep them in. And it does a couple things by keeping people in their houses. One, it keeps the value of the neighborhood stable, because you and I both know if a foreclosure hits a market, it drops the value down, right?
Totally, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
So it retains that value, plus the pride of home ownership. Now, I can get them reperforming, now they're paying taxes, now they're paying insurance, now they're doing the repairs. I mean, if little Timmy flushes his rubber ducky down the toilet, you don't call Bank of America to come unclog the toilet, right? And that's the way I want to look at things. I don't want mailbox money. I want it to come in zeros and ones through wire transfers is what we want.
Yeah. Oh my, that's a great way to look at it, because people, the landlord business, unless you have a property manager, it's like you're going to get those calls. And if you're the bank, like you said, you own the property. You're not saying, hey, Wells Fargo, come unclog the toilet. They're like, just pay me the note. You're the owner, bro. Yeah,
that's right. You're responsible for the upkeep. If you don't, then
that's it. That's so powerful. I really like how we're getting into this. So before we get into the next part, what are some state, like we talked on New York, New Jersey. So is it really, people listening, they're like, wow, every state's different, Texas, Georgia. Are the notes definitely worth less in New York and New Jersey because of the foreclosure process? And then in Texas and Georgia, are the notes worth more because of the velocity of the foreclose?
So yeah, that's a really great question. So yes, your foreclosure time frame will affect a little bit on where you're at and where the existing bank or lender is in the foreclosure process. So in Texas, 30 days here, you're going to be paying mid-60s, maybe 70s of value to buy a non-performing note. In Georgia, same thing. It's fast forward. The thing about Georgia when you're buying distressed notes is you need to have a mortgage broker's license in Georgia. That's what the Attorney General requires, and that you have a licensed mortgage broker's license to be able to buy loans in Georgia. Now, the one exception is if you're buying with your self-directed IRA. It's an exemption in Georgia. And you have a few states that require licensing, like Washington State requires a license, Oregon requires a license, Massachusetts requires a license, Maryland used to require a license, but now doesn't. Illinois, if you're going to buy up in Illinois, I would avoid Crook County.
I was just going to say that. I heard you on the podcast say that county's like the worst to deal with.
It's horrible, but I don't buy in those areas because there's just so much corruption going on. But I will buy in other parts of Illinois, and Illinois requires you have be a licensed debt collector. $700 each year. Yeah, you're good to go. The most important thing that I want people to realize that are listening to this, many fix and flippers, many investors think they have to do it all themselves. This is a business. The note business is a serious business. You've got some big wigs, big institutions behind you with the Fair Debt Collecting Practices and the CFPB behind you. You actually will make more money and by doing less of the work yourself. You've got servicers that are designed to help you with the borrower outreach. They're there to talk to the borrowers. If you're don't have a background in it, you should not be talking to the borrowers. Okay. Yeah. You've also got different real estate attorneys. You need to have an attorney in every state that were licensed in that state to do the foreclosure process or the evictions. And then you've got, other things. We talk about collateral, and collateral has two different meanings. Collateral to you is the property. Well, the collateral to me, see if I got a loan, is the loan file. Okay. It's actually the loan file, the documents. My documents can be anywhere from this big to like yay big.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
Because if somebody's tried to do a loan mod 4 times, we'll have all the paperwork in there. So maybe trying to do a short sale, we'll often get the full loan docs. Sometimes we've had a loan file sent to us where the borrower had already signed the property over in a deed in lieu, so it was an REO, or insurance checks made out to the bank that nobody cashed. So that's the thing is that's our collateral is actually I have one right here.
Look at that.
I actually have this one right here on our desk.
Collateral.
The borrower just walked away from this one in Birmingham, Alabama. And, we paid, I think, $12,000 for that note. It's a smaller contract for deed. I think $45,000 with a balance on it. Well, the house is worth $90,000.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And so we've had it for about a year working with the borrowers, trying to get them out. They finally walked away. It needs a little bit of upkeep, but I could sell it tomorrow. 50, 60 grand via meetup.com or a local REIT group to somebody, local landlord or a weekend warrior, and leave plenty of meat on the bone for them to come in. And I'm sitting happy as well.
Right. Yeah. That's amazing. No, that's a very powerful business because you can come in at those discounted prices because you're dealing with the bank. So Scott, people are probably thinking now, wow, this is a really interesting business. How the heck do I find these notes? Because you said earlier you stopped marketing for motivated sellers on the basis of postcards and bandit signs, but clearly you still need to find a way to get deal flow. But I feel like in this business, it's a little bit different. So what are you doing, or what are successful note investors doing to get, because the key with me is it's got to be consistent deal flow. I need to have deals in my desk every day that I can make offers on. So what are you guys doing to find these notes?
So it's a little bit different. With you doing a postcard mailing or bandit signs, your typical distressed owner is going to have how many properties, Greg?
Oh, no.
1.
Oh, no.
So you've got to keep that marketing chain going. We go higher up the chain to the banks. How many distressed mortgages does a bank have?
As many as they probably, as many as the balance sheet have.
Their answer is as few as possible to them because it affects them derogatory. But you've got the mortgage, the national default rate's 3.2% right now. You have, 21 million loans originated last year? 3% is still 2.1 million loans roughly for the most part, roughly.
Oh my God. So
it was 70 million loans. Sorry, 3% of 70 million is 2.1. So that's what we do. We go after banks and real estate hedge funds, portfolio lenders that are springing up left and right now. And we say, hey, what do you have on your books you're looking to get rid of? Sometimes it'll be 1, sometimes it'll be 50. Sometimes it'll be at 150 that I can cherry pick from. Like I just got a listing today. Other times it might be 400. It might be, one of the things I got first starting, I was calling around banks and I got a hold of the Capital One, what's in your wallet, their commercial side. And they sent me a spreadsheet. I'm sorry, what was that?
With Jennifer Gardner on the commercials.
Not quite before Jennifer Garner was around, before she was Benifer, whatever. But the thing is, I called, it took me like 70 phone calls over 3 weeks to get to the right person in the right department. You're not going to walk into the local bank and say, hey, I want to buy your notes. They're like, we don't sell, because they don't. You're not going to sell at the local Chase or the Wells Fargo. You're going to have better luck targeting the regional banks and some of the smaller banks out there. But the people inside the banks that handle the loan sales go by a specific couple of names. One, they're called the special asset manager. They often go by secondary marketing managers, because there's a secondary market for these things, or like the chief credit risk officer, because they're looking at their credit risks and stuff like that. Because for every dollar in non-performing loans that a bank has, it costs them 10 to 15, sometimes 20 times that in their ability to leverage that money and rinse and repeat it. And it's all about the velocity of capital with them. Okay.
Oh, okay.
So non-performing loan costs a bank quite a bit of money. So, but that's the thing. We're going after these internal departments that are either in a different building or sometimes a different state. And we're targeting, like, we'll jump on LinkedIn as a great resource. I mean, you can type in special assets manager on there and find a couple 100,000. Same thing with secondary marketing managers. There's, 5,000 plus banks and so many other lending institutions out there that all have distressed debt, whether it's residential or commercial assets. It's usually different people in the banks that handle each side, but that's where we go. We just go further up the river, direct to the source. And that way, once I make right contact with a banker, now they're feeding me monthly. Now they're feeding me quarterly. Now, instead of dropping 1,000 postcards, and licking stamps and all that good stuff.
Been there, done that.
Now I just do an email blast. We send an email out once a month, the first Tuesday or Thursday. We'll get 20% of the 5,000 asset managers relationships we've made to open it. We follow back up with them, and then we'll get different lists sent to us on a regular basis. So now that I don't have to, I can sit at home in my T-shirt and shorts and flip-flops if I want to, and just get lists sent to me for the most part.
And it seems like it's more of a, because I think a lot of people listening now, they're in this business, they're negotiating with sellers. It's more of a, when you're working with a bank, it seems like it's more of just like, hey, this is what I want for it. This is my offer. It's just a straight up numbers game. When you're dealing with distressed home sellers, a lot of times there's a lot of emotions and, I've had the house for 30 years and there's 10 people who are inheriting this thing. It's a nightmare, right? But they're good deals. Yeah. It's more like it's a B2B sale, right? You're doing B2B.
Yeah, there's no emotion involved. It's about numbers, and there is a negotiation thing back and forth. What do you have? Make an offer. Oh, we'll counter back and forth. Sometimes they won't accept our first offers. That's great. We'll wait 30 days or 60 days or 90 days and follow back up with them. If they hadn't sold it in 90 days, they're a little bit more motivated to move.
Absolutely. And what do you see this like? And this is a kind of just a curious question. Do you see people is this a little bit more, I guess, less competitive than some of the traditional real estate? Because this is a little bit more sophisticated. So everyone and their cousin's sending mail. Everyone's cold calling now, and it still works in our business, in the residential business. But I feel like this could be a little bit less competitive. I'm sure there's other people doing it, but not as saturated as the mainstream channels.
There's, I think Eddie Speed, who's out of Dallas and is a peer of ours. I think we've had the conversation that we think there's somewhere between like 10, 15,000 true note investors out there that are buying distressed debt like this. There's a lot of people that understand owner financing, or they do hard money. That's a different animal. For what we're doing, it's a very small kind of piece of the pie, especially on the non-performing side. Now that number has grown over the last 5 years as people got tired and couldn't find as many deals on the REO side or buying a HUD foreclosure. So they've kind of come in, and that's why we made the joke, the REO refugees, people coming over to the darker side to do that, or people looking for deals. And so we've seen pricing increase because there's a little bit more demand. It's also helped that the market has recovered some, so it's got a little bit more competitive in the last few years. But what we find, and you will probably agree to this too, is the low-hanging fruit is where everybody always goes, right? People want to do the least amount of work, right?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so there's been funds that have come out that had stuff on a regular basis. That's pretty easy. You go to a conference, you can find out who those people are a lot of times. Sometimes they're vending. Well, we don't waste our – I won't say waste our time with those guys. I mean, we still get their list sent to us, and we're usually in the first couple spots to offer. But we go after new targets. I mean, if you think about what's going on in the market right now, subprime is back. They got really original. It's now called non-prime. Okay?
Prime.
Non-prime loans, and there are lenders in every state. All 50 states have lenders that are offering 100% financing, or they're doing loans with people that have 520 FICOs. It's sad, but it's still around. You see more homes popping up. I see this all the time, especially around here in Austin. Thing, new home builds, $500 down, get you a house. And I'm like, okay, great. In 6 months, when your value is readjusted for the tax values, because now they're valuing the property for a full lot plus improvements versus just a lot, you're going to be in default.
Yeah.
So it leads to a lot of opportunity with us. Now, it's been nice. At the peak in 2010, 11, we had 15 million homeowners underwater. It's a little bit less than that, 3 to 4 million now. But what you have to realize, and this is everywhere, 1 out of every 10 Americans is already 30 days or later behind on their mortgage.
Wow. So there's just so much opportunity out there. I mean, no matter what, if you just look at the numbers, and that's why I like this note business a lot. It's very interesting. It's more of a numbers kind of thing. Like if you just look at the numbers, the foreclosure rates, the banks, like it's just more of kind of like a less emotional situation on the acquisition side. So definitely very interesting. So are you seeing too, Scott, like with the whole kind of note thing, like if you get a tape, and if people aren't, they don't know what a tape is, it's basically just a list of assets.
It's a spreadsheet, yeah.
Yeah, a spreadsheet. When you get a tape, and you make, it's probably just, if you make, 20 offers on assets, you're bound to get at least 1 or 2, I'm guessing, right? It's just a numbers.
Yeah, and that's what I tell people when you're starting off with, you're probably only going to have like a 10% acceptance ratio or closing ratio. A lot of people, the big mistakes they make is they look at what they have in their savings account or the IRAs and only make offers for what they can afford to close on.
Yeah.
And I laugh about that because I don't have a 50% closing ratio. I've been doing this for 10 years. We average about a 30, 40%. It's like baseball. You hit 3 out of 10 times, you're in the Hall of Fame. And so that's the thing. We make a lot of offers. We know that probably half aren't going to be accepted, or they're going to be countered back, or maybe they've sold off, or the borrowers have worked something out. That's fine. But we want to control a larger portfolio because A, it gets bigger discounts by buying in bulk. It's like buying at Sam's versus buying at Walmart.
Yeah.
B, the hedge fund of the bank is going to rather deal with me for 20 deals versus 20 individual investors. All right. And C, it buys us more time for due diligence and to raise capital, because now we've got 30 to 45 days to close versus 3 to 7 days to close if we're buying one asset.
Yeah, and that's how you just scale the business. Now you can start buying these in bulk and really scaling it up and making systems and having operations. So that's really awesome, man. That's awesome. So let's kind of shift one more thing on the note side. Then we'll talk a little bit about success habits, because I'm big into the mindset and the habits thing there. A random person in my house right now. It's probably the property manager. So what are the, like, if someone's brand new, they like what they're hearing today, they're like, oh, this note business sounds awesome. We'll give you some information on Scott as we get to the end of the show. But what are like the 2 or 3 things that if someone wants to get into this business, like if they have to focus on 1 or 2 things and they're an activity that they can do consistently every day, what would you say though that 1 or 2 things would be for them to get, some traction in this business, so they could listen to this and say, Scott told me to do these 2 things. Let me do these consistently and see where my results are.
So here's what I would do. It's all about marketing. The reason we have gotten, and we're the best at what we do, is because of our consistency with marketing. Day in, day out marketing. Every day we do a podcast, or every day we got an email blast going out, or every day we're doing something consistently. There's a variety of things. Now, if you're brand new and you're working a job and you still got 40 hours a week, that's fine. You can do a lot of great activities in your side hustle, from 7 p.m. to 2 a.m. I'm a big proponent of jumping on LinkedIn and connecting with asset managers there. You want to make sure you've got a good LinkedIn profile. If you're still working a regular job, that's okay, but talk about something that you're doing. Hey, I've been a real estate investor for a couple of years, or I've been focused on distressed asset for the last 24 months. Something in there that tells the asset manager, because that's the first place they're going to go to look you up.
It's like that,
do they pass the muster test? It looks like it. Okay, great. We'll move on to the thing. So one of the great things that we did early on, and we still do this on a regular basis, is we basically reach out to 100 new special asset managers basically a week. We'll connect with them, send them an invite, short little message. And one of the things that we've been adding is a little short 2-minute video link into that message, so we can actually talk longer than 160 characters. Okay. And so this gives them an opportunity to learn a little bit about more what we're looking for. Hey, I'm Scott Carson. I'm the owner of WeCloseNotes.com. Been buying distressed debt for 10 years. We like to rehab the borrower if we can. Our servicing company is Madison Management. We're buying in 30 states and are looking for assets in major metroplexes and secondary markets. We're looking for assets that are anywhere from $50,000 to $200,000 in value, approximately. And sometimes the hairier the assets, the better. We're not opposed to having to deal with something that's got some issues. So, we're always buying for our own portfolio. I'd love to visit with you. I'm Scott Carson. We close notes. Something simple like that.
That's awesome.
And you just copy paste it. You could do that at any time at night. I mean, whether you're sitting there watching watching the Giants beat the Dodgers on Sunday Night Baseball, or I saw you're a Dodgers fan. I had to put the Giants jacket on there first. There, he's going to delete this episode now. Everybody, watch out.
Yeah, totally.
Or you're sitting there watching Skinamax at 2 a.m. in the morning. You just copy paste. Exactly, straight from your phone. That's the beauty of this is marketing. And then secondly, you can pull asset manager emails from like laneguide.com, which is like $160 a year. You could jump on like distresspro.com. I mean, heck, the banks, the actual true banks, every quarter file their quarterly report with the FDIC.gov. And you can go see whose banks or what banks have higher default rates or higher 90-day accrual rates, and then target those banks to reach out to see if they've got stuff they're looking to move this quarter.
That's so smart. So the key here is the takeaway for everyone. The action item is marketing. You got to reach out to people on LinkedIn. You got to reach out. And this is going to be different for people because this is not motivated sellers. These are potentially motivated banks. It's going to be more of a professional transaction. So reach out to people on LinkedIn, reach out to people on email, and just do it consistently. And I'm a big believer in just tracking your results, right? Track how many people did you reach out to? How many responses did you get? How many productive conversations happen? Then you can see patterns. Then you can start to, have systems to, scale out your business. So Scott.
So I used to make 50 to 100 phone calls a day, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays. And I never call on Monday. Don't ever call on Friday. Call between like 10 and noon their time or 2 to 5 and just make it a game. For every no I got, I knew I was basically $500 closer to a yes.
Amazing.
And that's what I did. If you can't make phone calls, then do emails. And you can always see who opened your email and follow back up with a personal message to them as well if you're using like a MailChimp or Infusionsoft or something else like that.
Absolutely. And the key comes down to consistency, right? It doesn't matter what business you're in. If you're not consistent, don't even waste your time.
Well, I don't have a tattoo on my ass, but I should. It says 80% of sales are made after the 5th contact.
Yeah.
Okay. Asset managers are very busy. They're not going to always respond to your voicemail, so don't take it personal. If you make 50 phone calls, you'll probably talk to 12 to 15 people. You probably get 1 to 4 non-disclosure agreements to sign for them to release something for you, and you may get a tape or 2 or more from that 50 to 100 calls.
Exactly. And then the thing is, ladies and gentlemen, once you do this more, like the better I got at marketing in the residential business, the more I did it, the better I got at it. And then the learning curve was shortened. So now it's like, okay, it's like second nature. So in this business, it's going to be the same thing. The more you reach out, you're going to get the feedback loop's going to fire. You're going to start to see how they respond. Maybe this copy was better. The other copy was better. It just comes down to consistency. So as we shift towards the last part of the show, Scott, what are some success habits that you do that really provide you with the consistency and the success you've had so far? Just stuff you do on a daily basis, because I'm a big believer in just habits kind of guiding everyone's life for good or for bad.
So I basically time block my schedule.
Same.
Your people will not, and this is a big thing. I think most entrepreneurs or new real estate investors, when they leave their job, the time freedom strangles them because they're wasting time. So if you can time block your schedule, you can maximize. Honestly, you don't need to work a 40-hour schedule as a real estate investor. You literally, if you're focused for a few hours, 20, 30 hours a week or less can really be all you need to focus on if you're using systems and VAs and things like that. But time blocking your schedule is important every day. Usually if I'm here in the office, I'm in Austin, 12 to 1, I'm in the gym. I got to take care of myself first because I have a lot of people that rely on me, vendors and families and things like that. So you got to take care of yourself first with health, make sure you eat good, taking care of working out. So that's actually rehab for me each day at 12 to 1 because I can focus with my trainer and not worry about anything. But taking care of yourself, time blocking, and then we always come from a place of marketing first.
I love that.
So when we get a tape in of assets, we'll identify 4 or 5 assets. We'll see if we can find some good photos, street view shots of those. and we'll start marketing. Hey, here's some of the deals that we're working on. You know, we'll do a podcast almost every day between 10 and 11 or 11 and 12. That's my way to get out of what we're doing, a nugget of the day. And I do them 4 to 5 times a week because it's become such a great way to raise capital and have people, you know, get into our circle of things. But we use a thing called, I call it the marketing octagon, 8 sides of things. So if we get a photo of a property, we can share it to Instagram. I'll do a short 2-minute little selfie deal video on it, and we'll share that to YouTube. We'll get that transcribed, and it becomes a blog that we can post to Facebook and to LinkedIn as an article. We'll post it to Twitter, or we'll take that little video and blog and post it to meetup groups in that specific city to attract other investors. Or we'll throw it on iTunes as a podcast episode, or worst case, we just put all that together in an email blast and send it out to our investors in those areas.
That is awesome. You're like repurposing content. You're getting the content, and then you're just taking it and you're leveraging all the platforms without having to like post here, post there. It's just all same content, different medium. And people consume content in different ways. I mean, I like personally listening to podcasts and reading. Some people love watching the YouTube video or like going to the live event, like physically there. So you got to make sure you're tailored to everybody. So that's awesome, Scott. And then what about books? I mean, what are some books that have really helped you, maybe with time management or anything, just because I'm a big believer in books too.
So the best book that I would recommend it was written by Napoleon Hill back in 1938, but wasn't published till a few years ago. It's called Outwitting the Devil.
Great book.
Phenomenal book. My friend Sharon Lechter, who's the co-author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, she was given the manuscript by Don Green, who's the CEO of the Napoleon Hill Foundation.
Oh, wow.
And when they went to Mrs. Hill, they asked, well, what about this manuscript? She's like, oh, I wouldn't let Napoleon publish it back then because in 38, talking about that you're having a conversation with the devil, they thought you were possessed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so what Sharon did, she took the original manuscript, read it, and only added paragraphs to what she thought Napoleon would think of it as the world today. And the book is all based about a conversation Napoleon's having with the devil about what makes him successful and keeping people down. And it comes down to that the most successful people, the people that get the most amount of really positive things done, not only in work, but in life and society, are the ones that are focused. They don't drift. And I think we all know people, and I think we're all guilty of drifting, where we get excited about one thing and then suddenly, whoops, squirrel, or shiny object syndrome. Oh, I got to run to another convention, or I got to run to another workshop, and I'm going to add another tool to my tool belt. Well, you're not going to find success that way. And so that's the number one book that we love sharing. Love giving. I've given away probably hundreds of copies of it. If you have not read it, go read it. It's not the easiest book to read in some cases, a little dry in some spots, but it's probably at the end you'll sit back and go like, wow, that was one of the most impactful things. So that's led me to the point where like I got to be focused. I'm just like any other entrepreneur. Sometimes I get excited and sometimes I get bored. But the more you can focus on in one path, one lane, the faster you can get to your end game.
Absolutely. Now that is a great book. Have you ever listened to the audiobook? Because the way that they do the audio, it's fantastic. I've listened to that audio. I mean, that's a great book on my shelf. I love that one, man. I think it's better than Think and Grow Rich, to be honest with you.
Think and Grow Rich is an annual thing that I read. We give a lot of. I mean, every time I've gone to like half price books, I buy 5 or 6 just to give away as I'm not talking to people. But yeah, the audiobook's great. They've got a movie coming out on it as well. On Outwitting the Devil that my buddy Greg Reed's like the producer behind it. So they're trying to get it finalized. But another one that's really good is Profit First. By Mike, oh my gosh, McCulloch. He's got a long last name, but Profit First is kind of the book about kind of paying yourself first and putting systems in place and adjusting your accounting to help you maximize your profits and then take care of everything. So it's a great book to read as well.
Awesome stuff.
Richest Man in Babylon, if you've got somebody brand new, one of the best books as well too.
Awesome. Yeah, and also I'll just throw in too for anyone. If you guys haven't heard like Brian Tracy or Jim Rohn or Earl Nightingale, some of these original guys, anything you can get, Napoleon Hill, Earl Nightingale, Jim Rohn, that stuff is just pure gold. And I just soak my mind in that. I just always rinse and repeat stuff over and over every time.
Great nuggets there. Yeah,
for sure. Well, Scott, we talked about a lot today, so I'm sure some people are like, oh my goodness, I want to find out more about this note business. So if people were interested, would you mind sharing, some things you guys do in the note business? You do have some education. And then if someone was interested in reaching out to find out more about you or your companies, what would be the best 1 or 2 ways for them to get in touch with you?
So yeah, we've got different online trainings. We've got the podcast, the Note Closer Show podcast, that we're now in just under our second year. We should hit 300,000 downloads the next day or so in our first 19 months. We're live in 17 AM FM radio stations across the country every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, just recently.
That's
pretty
awesome.
stoked about that. But you can find just about everything we do at weclosenotes.com. It's our website. Okay. You can find the podcast there. You can find about our classes, our online training. I'd love to give your listeners something free. Is that okay?
Sure, absolutely.
If they go to noteblueprint.com/free book,
okay,
noteblueprint.com/free book, they'll be able to download my 73-page book on how to buy real estate at 40% off. It's basically a great little intro read on buying notes.
Awesome. So noteblueprint.com/free book. I'll make sure I put that in the show notes and they can go there and they can start to get into the note business. This is awesome. Well, Scott, thank you so much for being a guest. I really enjoyed this episode. I learned a lot myself, and hope you have a great rest of the day, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Hey, everybody, listeners, go out, subscribe, give them a 5-star review in iTunes. He didn't pay me to do that, but God knows we put so much work into our podcast. Greg's doing a great job. Give them some love on iTunes, 5-star reviews, and subscribe now.
Thank you so much, Scott. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, bud.
Yeah.